Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Shatterpoint Stat Center Meta Watch for February 2026. I'm your host Steve, and join me as I dive into the data and have a look at how the primary units have been performing in Shatterpoint throughout the month. So let's have a look. And before we begin, just to quickly address AMG and Asmodee's announcements, there is no sign of the game slowing down in any way when we look over February's data, so it's all looking really positive. And also, I must apologise prior to the recording, just in case you hear any motorbike noises. It appears that I am in an episode of the Book of Boba Fett with lots of young teenagers riding around on bikes in my area, so if you hear any motorbike noises in the background, that is what that is referring to. So let's start by looking at the events and the games played. So if we see up here, we can see that there are 36 events that have been played, equaling 381 games. Now, these are broken down into tournament events and league events, as I said before last time in the Stat Center. Unfortunately, Longshanks does not allow you to filter via league or tournament. It will only allow you to filter via rated or unrated. So there is one rated league that has run in February, but the rest have been unrated. And the tournaments, we are only looking at the data from rated tournaments. This is why that, in my opinion, I think all tournaments should be default rated and all leagues should be unrated, so that we can actually use this data to good use and not have leagues creeping in or miss out on some interesting tournament data. So, just to put in perspective where we are for this month by comparison to January, so we see that there are 35 tournaments that ran. Last month there were 45, so 10 more in January, but this isn't too bad, as we know that there is a slight dip in events leading into the big GT Adepticon coming up at the end of March, and the number of games is down by about 175, so it's not too much of a drop off there as well. Certainly some good comparable data that we can look at. So let's start by having a look at some of the better performing by win percentage primary units. And we can see up at the top this month we have General Han Solo coming in with a 67% win rate. He is closely followed by Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker on 64%, then Princess Leia charming to the last on 62%, then Anakin up to a 59% win rate. If you remember last month, Anakin was languishing at the bottom of the table, and now he's managed to pull himself up to a 59% win rate, which is great to see. Ki-Adi-Mundi also on 59%, and Boss also on 59%, along with Ahsoka Tano also 59%, and then Cassian coming in with 58%, Hunter 57%, Jin 56%, along with Veers, another one of the primaries that was languishing at the bottom, but I think that we've seen a bit of Veers love this month. Certainly some good players playing Veers in the UK, pulling his win rate up to 56%, Luminara as well on 56%, then Mace on 55%, Riff and Asajj on 54%, and then Obi-Wan on 52%, with Kanan on 52%, Moff on 51%, and then our 50%ers are Hondo, Lando, and Count Dooku. Then if we kind of look through as we get to the bottom end of the table, we can see that unfortunately down in the 25% win rates we have Chirpa and Kit Fisto, which is quite sad to see, although Kit only had 4 games played this month. Thrawn as well, not doing very well on a 28% win rate, along with Mother Talzin. She's definitely waiting for the new boxes to be released, where we see some Night Sister tag synergy, hopefully. And then, Maul and Amidala and Krennic also kind of at the bottom there. However, before we dive into a bit more in-depth data on some of the primary characters, it is worth noting that yet again, all 42 primaries have been played competitively this month, even if it was only a few games, which is fantastic to see for the health of the game. Great to see that people are choosing to play their favourite characters still. And also what is interesting is in January we saw 18 units hitting 50% or higher win rate, but this month we are seeing seeing 21 units hitting 50% or higher, which means that exactly half of the primary units available are achieving the 50% or higher win rate, which is brilliant in terms of the health of the game as well. So let's take a look at a couple of these primary characters and start diving in a bit deeper. So the first metric we are going to look at is not just win percentage, but it's now how many games have these primaries been played. And coming in at number 1, yet again, second month in a row, I believe it was, is Boss with 108 games. That is closely followed by Cassian with 105. And then if we scroll down a bit further, he is not doing too badly, but he's not up at the top end. We have Mando with 95 games. Then back up again, we have Hunter with 74. Then Obi-Wan is down here in 16th on win rate, but he is still in the top 5 with 65 games played. Then I would like to just pull out a couple of other notable primaries. So I will be looking not just at the top 5, I'm actually going to look at the top 8 of games played, as we see Vader coming in with 61 games, then Grand Inquisitor with 59, and then up at the top, 5th on win rate and also equal 7th on games played is Ki-Adi-Mundi with 59. So this should give us an interesting mix of primary units to look at. However, to start off, I am going to take a look at 3 of the primaries which do not feature in the most played, but have seen a good improvement on win rates, and they are Han, Leia, and Anakin. So we're going to start off by taking a look at Han's data. And here is the main reason why I wanted to take a look at Han's data. It is because of the games that who he is playing with the other primary units. So who's he being paired with? And we see a 71% win rate across 7 games with Freedom Fighter Leia, a 71% win rate with 7 games with Luke, and then also with 8 games, a 63% win rate with Cassian, and with 7 games, a 57% win rate with Jin. So those are 4 really, really good primary units to be pairing with Han. And it's interesting as Han is up at the top of the meta in terms of win percentage this time, and it's great to see that this isn't just, you know, Cassian boosting Han or Leia boosting Han. There are a mix of different primaries that have contributed to Han's success. But by contrast, when we move over to Princess Leia Charming to the Last, we can see that almost half of her 50 games have been with Cassian. And yet again, this is a real power pairing in the meta at the moment, with a 67% win rate coming in with Leia and Cassian combining. And the only other unit that comes slightly close in terms of the higher number of games played is 6 games is the next number, and that is with Jin coming in with the same win rate. So clearly PLC and Cassian still doing exceptionally well at the moment in the meta. And then finally, the last one of our kind of quick looks is Anakin, and Anakin is coming in with 15 games being played with Ki-Adi-Mundi on an 80% win rate. So that is brilliant to see that Anakin is back, and clearly the Ki-Adi and Anakin build is the one. So if you are looking to bring Anakin to the table, I would strongly suggest you look at bringing Ki-Adi-Mundi, whereas Boss brings a 60% win rate with the 5 games, then Hunter with 4 games, and Obi and Padme and Mace kind of dropping off there as well. So yeah, so definitely some interesting data this month from Anakin with Ki-Adi. But now let's dive in and take a look at our top 8 most played units in February. So starting off with Boss, as we can see, it doesn't really matter whether Boss goes first or second. The win rate is still hovering around the 57 to 61% win rate, regardless of whether you go first or second. So yep, that doesn't really have too much of an impact. And then if we scroll down to the allies, we can see that Hunter is still doing really well with Boss. 46 games, so that's almost half the games that have been played with Boss in February have featured Hunter, and we're coming in with a 61% win rate. Then with 32 games, we then get Obi-Wan coming in with a 59% win rate, and there is only one primary unit that Boss has been paired with this month where we see lower than a 50% win rate, and that is Luminara with 7 games, but you can see Vader with 10 games, Anakin with 5, and Mace with 4, and Ahsoka with 4. This is still a really strong primary unit, and Boss is going nowhere. However, there is some interesting data starting to creep through in the mission choices as well, and that is where Boss is struggling slightly. So if we look, we can see that Boss is very comfortable on Never Tell Me the Odds and shifting priorities. He is also doing exceptionally well on strategic positions, and this will come into conversation later when I take a look at the missions. He's doing very well there at the moment. However, he is struggling slightly on Sabotage Showdown, and with the limited data we have, First Contact as well, but this Sabotage Showdown, 43% win rate out of 46 games. So if you are concerned about Boss in the meta, the answer might be to take Sabotage Showdown. And up next is Cassian, coming in with a perfectly balanced 58% win rate, whether he goes first or second. So Cassian not caring about the turn ordering. And then if we scroll past those, we can see that the same as January, the allied primary units, so the units that Cassian is being paired with, are still vast. So look at all these different options going on here. Now, we've spoken about it already. The 24 games with Leia coming in at 67% win rate is still very, very high. Then we've got 18 games, 50% win rate this month with Kanan. Good to see that's dropped off slightly. In January, that was an incredibly high number there. And then a 15 games, 53% win rate with Jin as well. But as you can see, there is a wide range of units being chosen. And again, same as we saw with Boss, very few primary units struggling when paired with Cassian. The only ones that we're seeing with a possible blip at the moment are Ahsoka Tano, Jedi No More, Ahsoka Fulcrum, and I think in that one game probably the issue is Fulcrum, and then an interesting Cassian and Thrawn, 2 games there but no wins in that one there. But the rest of it, you can see it doesn't matter who you're pairing with Cassian, he is really getting the job done. And if we scroll down to missions, the other thing that we can see is whilst Cassian really favours Sabotage Showdown with a 71% win rate, he's also doing very well on First Contact and Never Tell Me the Odds, both on the 50s. Shifting priorities drops him below the 50%, but interestingly, early data seems to suggest that possibly Cassian is struggling slightly on strategic positions, although there's very little data to go on. Over to Mando now, and again, the win rate not changing too much on whether he goes first or second. So he does have our third highest number of games played, but his win rate is only at 46%. So just about staying inside the remit that we'd like to see for games. We want to see the kind of percentage win rate being around 55 to 45% win rate for a nice balanced game. So Mando just sneaking in to that one there. Then if we scroll down, we can see that he is allied with a variety of different units, but there is one that really stands out, and that is the Armourer, with only a 34% win rate with 41 games. And I think this is probably because when you've got newer players looking at how they can pair up different primary units, if you like Mando, if you like the Mandalorian show, you would think to yourself, well, brilliant, I'll pair the Armourer up with Mando. But this is not actually as strong as it looks at the moment in the current meta. Cad Bane as well coming in with 20 games, looking for that bounty hunter synergy perhaps, only a 35% win rate, but the success does seem to be coming through with Mando and Riff with 15 games with a 67% win rate, and also with Cassian really boosting Mando's win rate percentage up to 75% as well. So that's interesting data to see there, that Mando, whilst getting a huge amount of representation rotation this month, it's mainly the losses are coming from 2 primaries. So 60 of the 90 games or so, 95 games or so that have been played with Mando have actually been with these 2 primaries, where the win rates are around 35%. And if we look at the missions as well, we can see that both Shifting and Never Tell really seem to favour Mando, with First Contact hitting the 50%, but then a drop-off on Sabotage Showdown to 36%, and also on the new mission, 13 games played and only a 31% win rate. So Mando definitely needing a little bit of love in the meta at the moment. But a primary unit that is doing really well in the game at the moment is Hunter. And Hunter is bringing a 56 or 58% win rate, regardless of whether he is first or second. So it doesn't really affect him too much which way that's looking. And if we look at the allied primary units, there is a very, very clear standout, and that is Boss. 46 games of his 74 have been played with Boss and Hunter, and yes, that's 61% win rate there to stay. Obi, Hunter, which we did see some success with previously, 9 games at the moment, only a 44% win rate, and he's definitely struggled when faced with paired with Kiadi and Vader in a couple of games there. But yes, Hunter doing really, really well, and Boss is the pairing. And then if we look at the missions, we can see Strategic Positions and Sabotage Showdown and Never Tell Me the Odds are quite happy for Hunter to be on. Shifting, he's fine with as well. It's just First Contact where it starts to drop off a little bit. Hello there, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, bringing a 55 or 50% win rate respectively, whether you go first or second. So he's quite happy there with a 52% win rate, so just in the sweet spot really of the meta that we would like to see in terms of a nice balanced game. And if we look at his allies, again, there is one primary ally that stands out above all else, and it is Boss, bringing a 59% win rate to Obi-Wan. The others kind of after that, with the Kiadi 3 games, 99% win rate, that's good. But after that, we do start to see a little bit of a drop-off into the 40s, with Hunter, Anakin and Mace, so a little bit of a drop off there before Plo Koon and Padme really start to fall off there. Then if we look at the missions, unfortunately Obi-Wan has had no wins on First Contact in 6 games in February, but the other kind of standouts are Strategic Positions. He seems to be performing quite well on at the moment, and then Sabotage and Never Tell Me the Odds. We've got quite a balanced win rate there, with Shifting just dropping below the 50%. So whilst our top 5 seem very familiar to us if you've watched the stats show and watched the previous Meta Watch from January, now we can kind of look down at the next 3 primary units that have also featured quite highly this month. We've got Darth Vader. Okay, he's coming in with a 40% win rate, with a slightly more substantial win chances if you go second with him. But what is really interesting is if we scroll down here, oops, just going to slip there. If we scroll down here, we can see that whilst he's having some games with GI as the highest, 14 games, in the same way as we saw with Cassian, we've got quite a lot of allies for Vader, and this is what I really wanted to focus on, was seeing how many different units Vader Jedi Hunter is being paired with. And whilst the win rate outside of a few choice kind of pairings, one-off games here, is about 55%, so we're hovering around the kind of 50% mark, 50 to 45% mark, where we kind of want to be in the sweet spot of making a balanced game, we can see that there are a large range of primaries that he is being paired with, which is very, very good. Boss with Vader is getting 10 games on a 50% win rate. The Vader Kiadi list that we know and have seen over the past few months, and since the Kiadi box kind of dropped, that Vader Kiadi list started to appear. A 55% win rate at the moment is very good, and yeah, so nice to see a good mix of other allied primaries that can be featured with Vader. And if we look at the missions, though, we can see that strategic positions, definitely some interest in Vader being played on that one with the 7 games, but at the moment Vader is just struggling on all the missions at the moment. Now that is probably due to what Vader is facing on those missions. If we know that Cassian and Boss, for example, are doing very well, and then you run your Vader list into them, you are probably going to struggle. And sticking with the Inquisitors, again, not a great win rate at the moment for GI on 47, but he has had 59 games, and there is not too much difference between going first or second. But I did want to talk about GI, again, just because he's featured so highly in terms of the number of games by comparison to some other units this month, coming in as equal 7th most played. And we can see, again, a nice mix of primaries that he is being played with. So we've got Vader with 14 games, we've got Moff Gideon with 16. We're also seeing Cad Bane featuring as a kind of Empire caddy, because he brings 9 squad points, meaning that you can bring a 4 and a 5 cost with you, which is great for the Empire lists. And then also GI pairing up with Iden for a 70% win rate in 10 games is good to see as well. Then if we look at the missions, clearly First Contact standing out with the 75%, but only 4 games. So GI kind of hovering in the sweet spot, as it were, of percentages on mission in terms of win rate as well. So it's 55% with Never Tell Me the Odds, dropping down to 43 on strategic positions. And then our final primary unit that we are going to be taking a look at is really exciting because it's Ki-Adi-Mundi. Now, Ki-Adi is coming in as equal 7th in terms of games played, but he is also the only one in the top 5 on win percentage to make it into this list as well. And so we can see with 59 games, Ki-Adi-Mundi has exactly a 59% win rate, which is a nice symmetry there. There is also a swing in favour of him winning if he goes first, which is interesting to take into account. Then if we scroll down, we can also see a decent number of allied primary units, but there are a couple of clear favourites. We've got Mace with 15 games and Anakin with 15 games, coming in at 60% with Mace and 80% with Anakin, which is great to see. Then Vader comes in next with a 55% win rate across 10 games, and then we see that Ki-Adi and Plo have had some interest being played together. Part of that is me. I played that 3 times, so that's some of my data coming into effect in February there. But then he does struggle with some of the random pairings that he's had, so Kit Fisto, Luminara, Padme, and Hunter, all not really yielding the result that he would want. But it is interesting to see that he is having a pretty decent win rate with a selection of primaries. And then also, in terms of the missions, very balanced from Ki-Adi-Mundi. We see Sabotage at 67% win rate, then Shifting and Strategic Positions, both at 60, First Contact at 55, and then Never Tell Me the Odds, the only one where he's struggling, on 46%. So, a good little dive into some of the specific data there, but just taking a bit more of a wider lens view now on the data. So, if we look back at January's data, we can kind of extrapolate that into what was being played, and we had 5 clear lead runners in terms of the numbers of games being played. And then after that, there were about 10 more units behind them that then kind of fitted into maybe about a 55 to 30 kind of % games played there. So that was where we were sitting with that. So there were not too many 15 primary units featuring in January, with 5 clear leaders. But now, this month in February, something that is very, very healthy for the meta is that we actually only really have kind of 3 standout leaders, with Boss, Cassian and Mando kind of hitting the 100 games. And then after that, we start to see quite a wide range of units appearing. And rather than kind of 10 plus our top 5, we've actually got 17 plus the top 5 that feature in 55 to 30 games kind of played, which is definitely really positive for the game. So, you know, to go from 15 primary units kind of being the more commonly featured ones through to 22 this month is definitely healthy for the game. And I think this is kind of really stands out as the community kind of not self-policing the meta, but deciding that they want to be playing some different primary units as we wait for the next balance update. And this is also been helped, I think, by certain tournament organisers offering either additional prizing or putting forward suggestions about how you might choose, or extra incentives to choose different primary units other than the kind of the big dogs of Cassian and Boss. Then our final little segment on the Meta Watch for February is going to be looking at the priority and the missions. So we can see from the 350 odd games where priority was recorded that yet again it is incredibly balanced, and the impact of going first or second is completely negligible, as it's a 51 to 49%. So basically it does not matter whether you are going first or second at the moment. That will be interesting to see whether that changes with the strategic positions mission coming into play, where there is a mission card where if you go first you do get to choose the layout. So that will be interesting to see if that data does start to swing as strategic positions becomes available more from mid-March. And then if we look at the missions, we can again see that Sabotage Showdown is leading the way. It's about 38% of games played this month were with Sabotage Showdown. And then we have Shifting Priorities and Never Tell Me the Odds raising up to about the 20%, and then Strategic Positions and First Contact on about the 9-10% kind of games played. But let's dive in and have a look at the data concerning the missions in particular. And here is the data for the Sabotage Showdown. So this is the primary unit win rate. And we can see right up at the top, Princess Leia charming to the last, 84% win rate across 19 games on Sabotage Showdown. So Leia really enjoying Sabotage Showdown. Then we also see Cassian with 42 games coming in with a whopping 71% win rate. So again, Cassian really enjoying. And Kiadi-Mundi, 18 games, coming in with a 72% win rate there as well. However, the interesting one, if we scroll down and down and down even further, is Boss here on 46 games with a 43% win rate. Now, this is really interesting, and as I mentioned earlier when we were looking over at Boss's data, if you are struggling with the Boss meta at the moment, then perhaps you would do well to look at this mission, Sabotage Showdown, and seeing if that will give you the edge versus Boss. But it is very clear that Leia, Kiadi, and Cassian are loving this mission at the moment. Over to Shifting Priorities now, and it's a little bit of a flip here as we see that Boss from 23 games has got a 70% win rate. So Boss really liking Shifting Priorities. We also know that Boss likes Shifting Priorities because of being able to control the midline of the board with the Delta pull. If you get Boss or the Shatterpoint as the first card, you can very quickly take control of Struggle 1 and get the spiral going. But then if we look down here, as I say, it's almost like a flip here. If we scroll down here, down in 21st with a 47% win rate in 17 games is Cassian. So Cassian really not enjoying the Shifting Priorities at the moment in the meta. Great to see Never Tell Me the Odds also featuring with about a 20% representation at the moment. That's ideal. Again, with 5 missions now, we would hope to see all of them being represented 20% of the time. So great that Never Tell Me the Odds has picked up again this month. And again, Boss with 18 games, 72% win rate. He seems to be enjoying this one a lot. But if we go a bit further down, we can see Cassian, 26 games, only 54% win rate. So whilst Cassian is not struggling on this mission, he isn't enjoying it as much as some of the others. First Contact now, and First Contact actually quite interesting this month, as there isn't too many primary units that have really played many games other than Kiadi Mundi on 11, but that's not really that many games to be looking at. Most of these are hovering around about the 5 games kind of average, but the interesting one that I will pull out though is General Han Solo, 4 games played, 4 wins, 100% win rate. Very interesting, and possibly one for those who are curious about playing Han Solo with his number 1 on the win rate this month. Maybe you might want to consider Han Solo with First Contact as the mission. And finally, rounding out our missions, this is one that I am very excited about. It's Strategic Position. So the brand new mission that has been released in France at the moment, and possibly some other places around the world. We're clearly seeing lists appear in the Stats Center where people are using strategic positions in tournament play, which is great to see. So it does mean we are getting some early data, and I would only expect this to suddenly spike in March as the new mission drops in the United Kingdom and in America, particularly before Adepticon. And there is, unfortunately for us watching the meta, one big red flag appearing already, and that is Boss. 12 games played, 11 wins, 1 loss, 92% win rate. And alongside that, we've got Obi-Wan. Okay, it's only 8 games, but again, it's 7 wins, 1 loss, 88% win rate. So we know how strong Boss is. We know how good Obi-Wan can be. And with Obi-Wan not losing hunkers and this mission being quite close together, you do get the feeling that Obi is going to feature quite highly on this mission here, and yeah, Boss worryingly not looking like he is going to be struggling at all with this new mission deck. However, if we do scroll down a bit, we can see 2 of our names that we have featured earlier, both Cad Bane, 13 games played, so quite a high number in this early preliminary data, only 38% win rate, and then Mando also 13 games, struggling with a 31% win rate. So Mando and Cad not the answer, but clearly Boss and Obi-Wan leading the way at the moment. Then if we just take a quick look at the coded list data, so the missions where people have taken those on the code, they are actually including the new mission in those, but it's just coming out as the numbers, so that's why it's not recognizing that as the new mission, but I have seen people already including it as it's been featured on some list building apps already. But yeah, Sabotage Showdown leading the way on that one with Shifting, Never Tell, and First Contact, so that kind of matches what we've seen from the full data that we've seen earlier. Again, sadly, a real lack in SBT coded lists being submitted. Only 145 lists submitted when we know there's been nearly 400 odd games. So that's quite far off the mark there, really, as well, which is a shame. We can still see that Baze and Turret and 7 Scorch right up there at the top, but it would be of great use if we could actually see this data used more productively. And if people were able to submit their lists. I did see that today at the time of recording. I'm recording this actually on Sunday afternoon. So although the videos dropped today on Tuesday, I'm recording this on Sunday. There was a ticket requesting more data for Star Wars Shatterpoint, which was fantastic. So they were saying that they would be interested to see the win rate of secondary characters in particular. And so I hit a big old yes on that one. So hopefully hopefully Longshanks will be able to include that data. However, that data will only be as strong as the SPT coded lists provided. So yes, really paramount that people try to include those where they can. So there we have it. There's a good look over the data from February, and we've had a little of a dive into the meta there. I personally am really pleased to see that the community have kind of self-policed or self-regulated and have taken some steps to be playing some different primary units. So that is really pleasing to see. We also know that there will be a balance update sometime after Adepticon, as it's going to be shown at Adepticon, so towards the end of March. So hopefully that will mean that we see this current meta stick with us until the last weekend of March, and then going into April we can then do a look back at Q1, look back over March's data, and then start April with a new meta coming in, with hopefully some changes to both Boss and Cassian, and hopefully that will shake things up a little bit. I'm also really excited to see strategic positions and find out where that one's going to slot into the meta. We've already got that early preliminary data that does seem to suggest that Boss is going to be super strong, but we have very little, very low numbers of games to go on. So I am sure that everyone who is crafting lists at the moment will be looking to find that edge, and it will be exciting to see how that looks going forward. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little dive into the meta for February 2026 that I've done. If you have enjoyed it, please hit the like, the subscribe, the follow, etc, etc. You know the drill by now. I am off to a tournament up in Sheffield this weekend, so there will be a tournament report video coming at the end of the week. Hopefully, I'm hoping that I'll be able to record that on Sunday morning and get that one out to you all following Saturday's event. And bar that, I will be back with the Shatterpoint Stats Centre on Monday with our first events from March. So, thank you very much for watching, and stay safe. Bye for now.